Hello, everybody. Jose Rodriguez again. The other day, I received a question. Somebody bought an EcoTank 8550 used, and they were told by the seller that it had sublimation inks in it. And I'm thinking, okay, great. You're going to start sublimating on, creating mugs or T-shirts or whatever. No, he wants to print photos. And I went, oh, really? So here's the thing. We always say that when you buy a printer for sublimation, say you buy one of the still available printers from EPSON that can be refilled, you cannot use Canon printers. The ink is incompatible with the print heads. So you buy an EPSON printer that has the ability to use refillable cartridges, and then you fill those cartridges with sublimation ink, and you load that printhead with that ink. That's it. You're going to be sublimating from now on. You cannot be reverting back to photography because the inks are incompatible. So how could you possibly say go back, especially with that printer? We have tanks here. There's an access port on top when you lift the lid up. The only way, and this will take so much work, oh my God, you would have to literally, and if you're considering this, just don't. Just buy an 8550 and from the beginning load it with sublimation ink, and be aware you got to use it almost daily at that point because sublimation inks clog like hell. Okay, so you have to extract the ink from the tanks. So you're going to require a syringe, a large syringe, and a long needle, blunt end, of course. You're going to insert it into the tank. Be careful not to harm anything internally, especially the port that leads to the ink lines, which then leads to the printhead. Okay, be careful. And then you extract as much of the ink as you can. Hopefully the tanks will be empty. I would run, say, I don't know, cleaning fluid. Look online. Windex works well, but then remember you are flushing that with something that's going to be going internally all the way to the printhead. You're going to be running cleaning cycle after cleaning cycle. 3 in a row is max. So you're going to run 3 of them, run a nozzle check. If you only see the bluish stain of the Windex solution, then at least you know all of the sublimation ink that has not clinged to the internal walls of the ink lines and the internal dampers of the printhead at least have been washed out. I'm still not guaranteeing that you have 100% of the sublimation ink removed. It's tenacious as hell. Okay, so then after that, what do? Oh my God, now you gotta empty out those tanks again, load ink. The ink is gonna be useless because there's still Windex in the ink lines or some other solution such as PSO Flush. That is a pink solution from inkjetmall.com or Cone Color. Well, you have to load some ink. Again, more cleaning cycles, nozzle checks until you start seeing ink colors, CMYK on your nozzle check. That's not enough. You got to then continue, 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 continue. You will go through several of those internal waste ink cartridges, yeah, until finally you can sort of be assured that you're running on regular photo ink. Just shell out the $500, buy a new 8550, and use their ink, okay? And you'll be okay. Don't start with something that was used for sublimation. Not recommended whatsoever. But if you're brave and you're tenacious enough and you want to go ahead, say you only paid $50 for this printer, I hope it wasn't more than that, then it might make sense to put and shell out some money. You're going to need cartridges for the waste ink accumulation you're going to be creating. And of course, the new inks, you're going to need probably twice the amount of ink that you normally would need in order for you to be able to completely flush out that system. OMG, what a pain that would be. But people are still thinking they can do that. Okay. And it's just, again, it's not absolutely impossible. It's just a pain in the rear. And, why go through that? Unless you can pat yourself in the back that I did it against all odds. Well, the odds are still very high that you will not be able to do it. But if you want to proceed and do that, then by all means try it. And if you succeed, then fine. Now you'll be photo printing. Make sure you run test prints with the standard images. Make sure that the output is what you expect it to be. You may see some weird bronzing for quite a while because those inks are still coating the internal walls of the ink lines and the dampers. It is ridiculous how difficult it is to remove that ink. All right? I'm just throwing that out there. I know, you may want to try it. I'm telling you, it's nearly impossible. Go ahead and try if you are in that kind of situation. And good luck. All right, that is it for now. Thank you so much. Oh man, this was a good one. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, as always, happy printing, everybody, and bye bye.